The gospel text of today is a long gospel, chapter 4 of the Gospel of Mark, verses 1 to 20. It contains the first parable which Jesus tells in the Gospel of Mark and also the interpretation. I will focus for our reflection on the parable proper, which is in Mark chapter 4, verses 3 to 9, and known popularly as the parable of the sower and the seed. The parable is this: a sower goes out to sow, and as the sower sows, some seed fall along the path, and the birds come and eat up that seed. As he continues to sow, some seed fall in rocky ground and do not have much depth, so they simply start to grow and wither away because of lack of depth. Other seed fall among thorns, and the thorns grow up and choke the seed, so they are not allowed to grow. And some seed fall in good soil and bring forth a plentiful harvest. Jesus says some 30, some 60, some 100. This is the parable, and we need to ask ourselves, what is the meaning of this parable and how it applies to our lives? The parable is about 4 kinds of efforts that we put in. The first is the effort where the seed is sown on the path, and the conclusion is that the seed is lost. The second kind of effort we put in is where the seed is sown along rocky ground, and the conclusion is that the seed is lost. The third is the seed sown among thorns, and the conclusion is the seed is lost. In other words, in 3 kinds of soil, in 75% of our effort, the conclusion is the seed is lost, and there is the danger that because 75% of our effort is lost, we might want to give up. What is the rules of working? What are the rules of doing it? Everything seems to be in vain. And then we come to the good soil. And in the good soil, the gain is 30, 60, 100. If you were to ask a farmer at the time of Jesus, what is the yield you are expecting from your field? The farmer would reply, I'm expecting an yield of 6. Or, if the rains are good and God is gracious, 8. 6 or 8. Jesus begins neither with 6 nor with 8, but he begins with 30, goes on to 60 and moves to 100, which means that Jesus knows nothing about agriculture. No, Jesus did know about agriculture, but he was not talking of agriculture in this parable. He was talking about his life. He was talking about his own ministry. In his reaching out to people, there were 25% who paid a deaf ear to whatever he said. Another 25% heard him, but on the superficial level. The third 25% heard him, but because they could not accept what he was saying, because it was too radical for them, too novel for them, they just let it go. There was only 25% made up of his disciples and others who heard his word, who took on what he said as his mission and continued that mission. What is important is that Jesus never focused on the 75% where the seed was lost, where his efforts seemed to be in vain. His focus was on the 25% which gained that 30, 60, 100. This parable is a parable which offers us hope. It is a parable which is saying to us that in our own lives, in the work that we do, in the ministry that we are engaged in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our places of work. It might seem to us that a lot of what we do seems to go down the drain, seems to be, as the phrase goes, like water on a duck's back, makes no effect whatever, is of little or no consequence. The parable is calling us never to stop sowing. The parable is telling us that our effort will never be in vain, that it is true. On the surface level, it might seem to us that 75% is lost, but it is also true that the 25% will be gained beyond our most generous expectations. The parable is saying that we have to sow and the Lord will make it grow. The parable is saying that we have to do our best and the Lord will do the rest. The parable is calling us never to give up, never to give in, but to keep on keeping on. Will you sow in the hope that the Lord will make it grow? Will you do your best and let the Lord do the rest?